Hello and welcome to Board Now's television reviews, and on this video I will be reviewing the first episode of the new Netflix miniseries Unbelievable, which debuted today. So this is an 8-part one-off story, and it's based on real events, although what they've actually done is they've actually taken research based on a series of cases and sort of pieced it together for the drama. And it's essentially about a girl who Marie, played by Kaitlyn Dever, who was in Booksmart recently, really made an impression in that film. And she claims at the beginning that she was raped. Then a guy breaks into her apartment, into her room, and assaults her, and we sort of see the flashbacks of that from her sort of memory. And the whole thing, really, the whole of the first episode is from her perspective, so it then follows her through the process of making her statement. And the story gradually is going to get on to you're going to have a couple of female detectives investigating the case, and this big truth is going to be unfolding. So they're still going to be introduced. I'm assuming that's going to happen in the second episode, but it's a pretty big and meaty cast and subject. You know, Toni Collette is going to play one of the female detectives. And I think it's definitely significant that they are female, which I'll get on to when I get to my thoughts on the opening episode. But yeah, I think that choice is particularly striking in what this is saying. Elizabeth Marvel, another really fine actress who you'd seen in different things. You might have seen her in Homeland. She was in Person of Interest. She's been in a few movies, but she's a really great actress as well. Very underrated. She's in this as well. And the opening episode, you know, it's worth flagging up the director. It's Lisa Cholodenko, I'll go with, I think. Really good independent director. Did the movie The Kids Are Alright, which, you know, came out almost 10 years ago now, but which got a few some awards buzz, and she's done films like Grand Canyon in the past, but really credible record for like really subtle sort of character type dramas. Really interesting director, so a really strong choice to direct this first episode. And she actually directs, I think, the majority of the 8 episodes, so that does sort of bode well. And I think the thing to say is that she really stamps a mark on it. You can really tell this is an experienced director. She really has a subtle sense of pacing and sort of location and kind of psychology. And she does bring this very sort of clinical, uneasy air to the drama, and really, yeah, it is very slow moving, but it's very naturalistic, and I found it, you know, tremendously engrossing and just really thrilling and interesting, intriguing, really. And I think it's such a smart choice. I mean, I guess it makes sense to have it from the lead character Marie's perspective, but, you know, for a number of different reasons. One, because it, you know, this thing happened to her, but I mean also because of the mystery elements and because of, you know, what is she hiding, if anything, or what really happened, which I'll get more into. I mean, I will go into spoilers. Obviously, it's hard to do this without spoilers, but One thing to say is that not a great deal happens in this episode plot-wise, but that's fine. It doesn't really have to. It's all about the character and her experiences and what it's saying about the world around her. And so I will mention here then Kaitlyn Dever is just fantastic. She is just so convincing, just really subtle, and she just has this way of just disappearing into herself. And yeah, you get the sense of this character who's obviously been unnerved by this. The episode really shows you the psychological confusion and torment she's going through, and how the world feels so big and intimidating after something like this. And she plays that so brilliantly. She's just such a tiny, vulnerable presence. And she has this brilliant use of speech, these sort of slurred, kind of sort of out of it, sort of deadpan sort of speech patterns. And part of that comes from, the way the character reacts to things. And part of it is just so what you would imagine someone would be going through at that stage. And yes, psychologically it's brilliant. It really captures that. It's really subtle. It really gets the kind of surreal sort of aspects, and just how someone who's been put through this is how their mind just races and is confused and is just struggling to process the whole thing. So I mean, it's tremendously effective in what it's doing, and it tells a really personal and powerful human story, but it does a lot more than just that. It brings up some really big questions and makes some big points about how we treat people like this in society. So, I mean, one of the things that you feel early in the episode is this sense of intrusion, and it's intrusion on two levels. I mean, it's the fact that she's obviously been sexually violated, or that's obviously what she's claiming, and that's which I'll get to. I'm not being facetious or crude about this, but it obviously is part of the mystery of the series, what really happened. But yeah, I think it really captures the how someone like this is sort of made to feel like a victim two times over, because we get the police investigation, we get them at the house, and at one point the mother, or it's not the mother, sorry, it's Marie's latest foster parent, which is something that comes up, the fact that she's had several different foster parents already, and that's going to be something which they're going to dig deeper into. But Elizabeth Marvel plays, her current foster mother, and at one point, she goes to get a change of clothes for Marie because she has to go to the station, and they have to do the whole tests on her and examinations, so she'll need a change of clothes. But when she goes to get them out of like the wardrobe or whatever it is, the closet, the detective sort of says, sorry, you can't touch that because it's evidence, sort of thing, because it's in the room where the assault happened. So I think it's this whole idea of not only Marie being violated sexually, but the sort of space and the whole house being kind of taken over by this investigation, and it's sort of feeling like you're being prosecuted as a victim, sort of thing, and you're being put through the ringer sort of twice, when at that stage, understandably, you just want to get things out of the way. You want to try and move on with things, or certainly you want to get your statement done and get that out of the way as quickly as possible, which is completely understandable. So we really get the whole sort of process of the investigation, and we get these long drawn out question scenes when Marie's giving her statement, and all that's just wonderfully done because it's so much from her perspective. So I think it maybe brings into question then because the scenes are very cold and clinical air, and I think because it's from Marie's perspective, I think often the detectives do come across as very cold and stern with their question. So they play that well. It almost maybe suggests then it could be her point of view, that then maybe that's not quite accurate, or that's not quite the way it's coming across. Or it might just be that kind of typical, you've got to be neutral as a sort of an officer when you are sort of questioning. But the whole atmosphere, it's really selling you on this idea then sometimes it is brutal, and do we really have to put victims through this much agony when they've already been through so much? And it's obviously understandable. There's certain legal things they have to do. They have to tick boxes, and they do have to get things as correct and accurate as possible, because otherwise justice and that can't really be served. But yeah, you do wonder sometimes about the system, and I think a drama like this really brings all that home. But as things transpire in the episode, I think that is kind of brought to light. Then maybe these detectives, these male police officers, just aren't sensitive enough, and they are very cynical and harsh in their ways. And again, it's a big critique, because obviously part of the mystery lies in what the truth is, so that's a different matter. But even so, to go in with this kind of cynical attitude, is she making this up, sort of thing, I think that's a negative way to go in to start with, and it's certainly not what the victim needs. And I think if you're being sort of realistic, I think probably a good percentage of the time, it is the truth, because generally, why would someone make something like that up? I mean, there's certain circumstances, but so, I mean, in many ways, this is a horror in the very psychological sense, the way she is put through all this, and their questions, and they're just questioning of her and certain details. But yeah, this is why I mentioned the gender, the fact that obviously we're going to get to these two female detectives, one of them played by Toni Collette, who are obviously going to try to get to the bottom of the case and what really happened. So I think it is significant, and in this first episode we have a couple of male officers. At one point we get another different one who comes in when Marie returns to give a different statement. But yeah, I think it is crucial, because first of all, it's making the point then quite reasonably, then obviously a man would struggle to understand just the torment and the torture and just what a girl would be going through after such a horrific event. Obviously, yeah, I hands up, I would have no idea. I can't even imagine what that is like to go through. So I think it's definitely significant, the fact that, yeah, you get two guys interviewing her initially, and there seems to be just this lack of understanding, and it definitely touches on sort of at least casual racism, because later on they're talking about another case about a guy who was in the end cleared, and it was turned out the girl was making things up. But yeah, there's almost this assumption going in that maybe Marie is sort of making it up. And obviously, as it plays out, there's inconsistencies to her story, and there's sort of contradictions with her statement and the statement, of her other people in her life. So her friend Connor, for example, who Marie said she spoke to for a couple of hours on the phone, sort of afterwards. So there's the way he describes what Marie told him. There's a detail about her. Apparently, she told Connor that she dialed the police, or dialed the phone number with her toe, sort of thing, which is something that she left out from her original story. But yeah, obviously the point it's getting across is just the confusion you have, and how you would feel the weight on the world of your shoulders, and how you're not going to be clear-headed and remember every little detail. And I mean, sometimes you may just say things, in an innocent way, but you may be, kind of saying them the best you can remember them, or maybe to also just get the statement done and get out there as quickly as possible. But yeah, what basically transpires is Marie does change her statement a couple of different times. And there's all this pressure on her, because at one point she offers to take a polygraph test. She kind of, as a way to sort of prove she's not lying. And so at that point, the police officer really lays it on thick, because he points out to her, well, you can take it, but if it comes back saying you're lying, that's a criminal offence. We can lock you up for that. So he really lays it on thick, which is just, that really sucks badly, that moment, and the way he treats her. And then there's another agonising scene, is because she's been going to, I think it must be like a foster centre, or maybe a support centre, and suddenly they kind of turn on her, because in the end she comes back, and the statement, she's sort of standing by a statement where she says, I made all this up, sort of thing. And they've been supporting her in the previous scene, and so everyone's there is mad at her, basically, or most of them are anyway. And there is a couple of supportive people there who you feel, are on her side and sympathetic, but and yeah, it's a complex thing, but I mean, I think the way the drama plays out is, I think you get the impression that she definitely was raped, but it's almost this idea that the way you are left feeling by the police in that circumstance, and by society, it's very hard to stand up and tell the truth, or to really go through with the statement and the conviction. And it's just this tragic irony, in a way, that you are made to feel worse, and you're made to feel then it's easier not to go through with a conviction and a statement, accusing someone of rape, than it is if you didn't, if you just said, no, I just made it up, it didn't happen, sort of thing. And there's different versions, like at one point she says it might have been a dream, But yeah, that's kind of the striking point. Just the fact that maybe in the end she just felt it was easier not to claim she was raped, sort of thing. So that's kind of where we're left at the end of the episode. And there's certain facts that popped up, the fact that the Elizabeth Marvel character at one point, says then Marie recently came to her, but then she was only with the previous foster mother for a few weeks, sort of thing. So it's a quick change, and that you get the impression Marie has had quite a few foster parents over the years. So certainly a very traumatic, very unstable background, which I'm sure we're going to get more information on in the coming episodes. But so it's not only a very powerful story so far, and I love the direction and the lead performance, but it's a new sort of perspective on this sort of theme as well. It's really I think it makes some potent points which maybe do go sort of underlooked in society, and the psychology is just so perfect. So there's also this great mystery and psychological element that just hooks you in. So yeah, fantastic first episode. I'm totally on board with this. I'm excited to see the rest, and I think based on the first episode and who's involved and everything else, I think this could be a potential contender for show of the year. So very excited to see the rest. But that's Unbelievable, which is a new Netflix miniseries, so a one-off story, 8 episodes, and the whole thing is up now, and I will be back with a second review of the next episode in the coming days, very soon. So thank you for listening, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.